The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
Josh Giddey has a 20-point, 11 rebound, and 11 assist triple-double.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast.
The Bulls get a dub. The Bulls get a dub over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, while the Cavs are falling short of their championship expectations this year, they still came into this game 15-12. Oh, how I would love to be 15-12 on the season, though, Pat. The Bulls get this done. 7 players scoring in double digits. We're going to start off talking about Josh Giddey and his triple-double. How'd you feel?
Listen, I thought that the team was locked in from the very start of the game. In fact, I don't know, because you do your pregame show, you don't get to hear the pregame show that they do on CHSN. Kendall Gill, following our logic from the show, in a wild way. That mug said back in the day, they used to have to squeeze different kinds of balls to make sure that their thumbs were prepared for whatever the defense was going to try and hit them with that day. So they were going crazy off rip. But listen, I thought that, the team came out aggressive. The team came out physical. And I really thought in the first half, like, as weird as it is to say, you set a precedent on the brand of basketball that you were going to play that day. Like, I was incredibly confused by what we saw from this team because we haven't seen it. Josh Giddey said in his post-game presser, his post-game interview, yeah, it's been a rough 10 games. 10 games? Brother, it's been rough for a while here, outside of the first 10 games of the season. So, I thought that it was a really good day for the team overall. I thought that they competed incredibly well. And Hayes, I don't know if it's a shock to you or anybody who watches this show, man, but guess what? Heck of a day defensively, and they managed to turn that into a lot of offense. It's this crazy concept that if they can do it every single night, dang it, they might win some basketball games. Look what happens when you did it for 4 quarters. So it was good to see the team lock in. Hopefully it's something that can continue. And I thought that it was, listen, I can't call it a confidence boost because you played the brand of basketball you started the season playing. So I guess you saw it again or you found it again. I'm happy in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely figured it out, and they found their balance, which is the most important thing, right? Is that they found that balance. They found how to get it done. That's what they needed for this team, is to figure out how to win a game. And they came in with big energy from start to finish. They came in with the needed energy, and that's what this team needed to do.
Yeah. No, and hopefully, listen, I think the thing for me that I like is the efficiency that they show. Josh Giddey balling out with the triple-double today. I mean, it's not every day you get a 23, 11, and 11 day, but they were talking about it ahead of the game. It felt like something like he was a threat every night to do that. And I thought Josh Giddey said something very, I don't want to say like surprising, but no, kind of surprising because it hasn't felt like this team had a leader at all. And it's like he took on that role because in the post-game presser, he was like, listen, I just got to find ways to continue to lead this team to victories. And I've never heard anybody on this team speak that way, where they're saying it's on me to take on the job of being the person that gets everybody going and make sure that everybody on the court is where they're supposed to be. That is what you expect from a point guard. But to say, like, to lead this team to the victories that they found, like, I thought that's what you saw on display a ton today. Josh Giddey, yet again, barking out instructions on the defensive end, calling out people when they were out of place, making sure the guys got back into place. I don't know if the little bit of time off that the Bulls have had made him a little more pissed off or a little bit more aggressive towards the team, but it seems like it's working.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Josh Giddey get frustrated a lot over the course of the season, right? Like, this isn't the first time, and so I feel like that's just a picking up from that before is what we've seen before from Josh Giddey, and that is that, he's gotten frustrated. He has cared. Like, I think in the last game we saw when that game started to slip from them, he got pissed. he was frustrated. You saw with the refs, with his teammates, he was yelling, he was screaming, he was turning red, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to see that this team needs that. We talked about that. This team does lack leadership. We need that a little bit. And Josh Giddey came out and gave us that today. And listen, Josh Giddey made some big shots in this game. Out of his 11 assists, five of them were to Nikola Vucevic. He was directly responsible for getting the big man involved, him and Trae Jones. And that's what Vooch is at this point in his career, right? He's going to need that point guard to get him involved. I know we're talking about him more here in the second half, but in the second segment. But I just want to acknowledge Giddey's part in that. Like when the largest part of your assist are to your big man, that shows me an intention from Josh Giddey to say, hey, big man, I got to get you involved in this game. And for what it's worth, Vooch paid that off, especially in the fourth quarter.
I'm not going to lie to you. It almost felt like there was I don't want to say a relationship, and I'm also not trying to like create a narrative there, but it felt like there was a focus of like, hey, you've been complaining about this. I've been complaining about this. Let's just work together and figure out how to get this done with us too. And everybody else can get involved if they want to put that level of effort in. I mean, like even Vooch was really the one who was hearing it from Josh Giddey being out of position tonight. And it wasn't a ton of times that Vooch was just god awful out of position. Like, I think even that is something different. So I don't know if there was a little bit more of a buy-in tonight, if there was a little bit more of comfort tonight, but I thought what this Bulls team did throughout the game, but especially when it got to that third and fourth quarter. I mean, the fourth quarter, I don't know if it felt this way to you, but did it seem like Donovan Mitchell just got uninterested in coming back into this game and competing?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, Donovan did do all the heavy lifting today.
100%.
And so maybe it didn't feel like, maybe it wasn't that he didn't care, but maybe he just didn't have it. Like he's been carrying this Cavs team for a large part.
6 minutes in the fourth quarter, though.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, but what did he play in the third quarter? I feel like he played all the third quarter.
Third quarter, he played 9 minutes in the third quarter. So I know he didn't start, but it felt like, I don't know if it felt like this. It felt like it got like, hey, is Donovan Mitchell hurt? Like, you know, when you start looking around, like, is he okay? Like, it felt like it got to a long time when Donovan Mitchell wasn't back in that game, especially in the final 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, and they probably needed that, like, because, like, Donovan, like I said, he was doing so much of the heavy lifting. Like, not to say the other players didn't help. They had somebody, I forgot the kid's name, the light-skinned kid. Like, I had never even heard Tyson? Yeah, I've never even heard a dude's name before.
He cooked us last time, didn't he?
Was that the one that cooked his last time?
Yeah, I think it was him. He was the unknown dude, and I was like, the Bulls start so many careers, bro.
Bro, like
who was our boy? Well, he not on there no more. Or is he hurt? Is he still on Cleveland from Philly?
He had 17 the last time that we faced off against him. He had 21 tonight. So yeah, Jalen Tyson, shout out to him because he had a big game for them tonight. Who
was our boy from Philly that went over there? Was it Max?
Max Strus?
Was it Max Strus? No, it's not Max.
He came from Miami, not Philly.
No, who was our boy from Philly? He used to cook us every time, and he ended up on Cleveland, and he was killing us.
Oh, he's not there anymore. I know you're talking.
He's not there no more. I can't think of his
name.
Who?
Nang is who you're talking about.
Oh yeah, Jordan, bro.
Yeah.
That like we started his career.
Yeah.
We spark everybody's career.
In both Philly and in Cleveland. Like he always used to cook us, bro, every single time. So but yeah, the Bulls got a big victory today. Major one in this one. Let me ask you this, Pat, because we don't have a cutout for Kobe. The backcourt of Josh Giddey and Kobe today combined, off the top of my head, it was 45 points. I think it was 16 rebounds between the two. I mean, 16 rebounds.
16 rebounds between the two.
16 assists.
48 points today, and it was 14 assists.
Okay. That's a nice solid production from your backcourt as a whole.
It's great production. And you know what? It was, I think this is the biggest thing for me. And it's not going to happen every night. At least it hasn't to this point. It was at first, and maybe they get back to it. It's efficient production. Kobe White, 60% from the three-point line. Josh Giddey, 45% from the three-point line. 61% from the field for Kobe. I thought he did a great job getting to the bucket and finishing strong around the rim. I thought he also did a great job making sure that he was continuing to there's no other way to say it, man. It's basketball. He made sure to suck the defense in, and he continued to kick the ball out to open guys so that the ball movement continued.
You know what he didn't do? He didn't do that stupid twisting thing either. Like he cut him, and
he didn't do the jump throw.
Yeah, which is good. But no, I mean Kobe. We talked about it, right? Like Kobe's three-point shot was not falling, but he was getting to the free throw line consistently. Once that three ball starts falling on top of how he gets to the free throw line, he's going to score 25, 26 points every single night.
And that's what tonight was, bro. 3 for 5. I didn't need you to take 37 3-pointers tonight. And he got to the free throw line 7 times, or he got to the free throw line 4 times. He took 7 free throws.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great day. Like, more times than not, that's what I need from you. And I'm glad that they found it versus a talented team. Here's the thing, though. Don't make this the pop-up. Make this the norm.
That's a fact. That's a fact. You got to find a way to give this energy every single night. I know people got in their feelings when Billy Donovan said it, but I'm going to concur. You're not talented enough to not give full effort every single night.
Oh, the coach called him out. Why are we so upset about the coach calling him out? We watch Ben Johnson call Muzz out every single week. And Muzz said, I will bench you if you play bad at left tackle. And Muzz was like, oh, I love it.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Memphis Grizzlies knock off the Minnesota Timberwolves, a big win, putting them one game away from getting back to 500.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast.
A massive win for the Memphis Grizzlies in Minnesota against the Timberwolves. And before anybody tries to rain on my parade, it's not going to be possible. Because as I like to say after Grizzlies win, the sun, it shines a little bit brighter. The air, you breathe it in, it's a little bit sweeter. Things are always just better after a victory. And this one is particularly sweet. And we'll talk more about why it matters so much for the Grizzlies later on in the program. But starting at the base level, any win, when you're a team that is in the play-in conversation instead of the playoff conversation, is extremely relevant. We have to keep that perspective. This is a Grizzlies team that is not where they want to be in terms of the NBA standings just yet. Certainly can improve, and they are continuing to improve, having beaten the current number 6 team in the seeding in the Western Conference, Minnesota Timberwolves, on Wednesday night. Only about 5 games back, or 4 games back. And I say only 4 games back. That's still a pretty big gap to cover, but give it about a month or so, Memphis could be right back in that mix, and we're talking about a different-looking team going into the trade deadline potentially as a playoff contender, not just a play-in contender. And as we've talked about on recent episodes, every victory means the Grizzlies are that much more cemented as a play-in team. The Portland Trail Blazers have cooled off. The Dallas Mavericks, Sacramento Kings, Clippers, everybody behind them at this point dealing with various stages of grief over how their season is going. And don't get me wrong, I'm not making fun. The Memphis Grizzlies have certainly had those feelings of late as well, but they're on the other side, at least for the moment, it feels like. And the Grizzlies 1 game away from breaking back into 500 or at 500 for the season after this win over Minnesota. It starts for me with the continued renaissance of Jaren Jackson Jr. and how it's been talked about here, there, and everywhere. The need for Jaren to step up, the need for Jaren to show investment, the need for Jaren to look the part of the guy that signed the near max contract extension that, again, in fairness to him, doesn't kick in until next year. But still, you signed this massive amount of money deal to stay with the Memphis Grizzlies. Hasn't looked like that type of player consistently over the span of this season. But you have to give him his due. He most certainly looked like that kind of player on the court against the Minnesota Timberwolves. No Anthony Edwards, that's important to point out for Minnesota. But Memphis was down numerous guys. No Ja Morant, no Zach Edey, no Cam Spencer. The Grizzlies had basically 10 healthy bodies to trot out there for this contest. And one of them was Brandon Clark, who was returning from injury. We'll talk more about how BC looked here in a little bit on the show. But BC only played 17 minutes. OMP, Olivier Maxence Prosper, only played 15 minutes. So that means you really divided up a vast majority of the playing time across 7 other dudes. Jock Landale played 30 minutes. We'll talk more about him in a bit. But Jaren Jackson Jr. in 33 minutes of play, 10 of 18 from the field, 28 points, 6 for 6 from the charity stripe, 2 for 3 from 3, 12 rebounds, the leading rebounder on the Memphis Grizzlies. Nobody can complain about Jaren's rebounding in this particular contest. 28 and 12, 3 blocks, 1 steal, a really impressive performance for Jaren. He was the best player on the court in a game that featured Julius Randle, in a game that featured 4-time Defensive Player of the Year Rudy Gobert. It was Jaren who was the MVP of the contest, and that energy matters. You have to be fair and you have to be balanced. You say, Jaren, you need to look like a star. The last several games, Jaren has most certainly looked like a star, and it has made all the difference for the Grizzlies in games such as this one, when they needed to knock off a team that going into the contest was 9-4 at home, was 17-9. This is a good win, the best win of the season for the Grizzlies, even with Anthony Edwards out. And we'll talk more about that later on in the program. I'm sure somebody's going to point out my disdain for Jock Landale throughout the season. And I want to reiterate that my issue with Landale was that he was not a starter. He's a reserve. So if you want to throw rocks and point out and say, oh, well, Joe, you look stupid because Jock Landale is playing really good basketball, nobody, first off, expected him to put up a stat line like this of 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists with no turnovers, 2 steals, a block. Nobody had Jock Landale doing that kind of productivity. Nobody. Even Jock Landale's mother and father wouldn't have had that level of productivity for their bouncing baby jockey baby boy. But the reality of the situation here is that when you have a player like Jock Landale contributing at the level that he contributed at, it picks up the slack for other guys. Santi Aldama was not as strong in this contest scoring the basketball. Had a good night rebounding, did some other things well, but it wasn't the best scoring night for Santi as a starter. Cedric Howard didn't have his best game, made some key turnovers down the stretch. But when your second leading scorer is Jock Landale, that allows for some flexibility in terms of how productivity goes elsewhere. And it also means when you're down Ja Morant, when you're down Zach Edey, when you're down Cam Spencer at this point, given the heater that he's currently on, to have another guy that has the capacity to shoot the way that he did. And it wasn't just from 3. It wasn't just in that space. He wasn't coming up short on hook shots consistently in this game. He was getting to the rim. He was finishing at the bucket. He was engaged and active on both ends of the floor, and he made all the difference. So the 2 best players for the Grizzlies in this particular contest were bigs. And we'll talk more about the fun problem that is being created with all of this success from the likes of Landale and others here in a moment. But Landale and Jaren get the co-player of the game. I would lean Jaren. But Landale, given all the gruff that has been given him by me, I think it's fair to say deserves a tip of the cap. Another guy that I've been talking about a lot, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Not his best shooting night, but another stabilizing force coming off the bench. Really impressive that he has taken to his role as a reserve so well. And that really shined through in his 23 minutes off the bench. A strong showing, somebody that they can count on. I continue to be impressed by Jalen Wells and how Jalen Wells is not just a guy that's shooting threes off of dribble penetration from other players. He's getting to the free throw line. Jalen Wells attempted 7 free throws in the contest. Now, part of that was end of game fouling and that sort of thing, probably 3 of those. But Wells is being trusted with the ball in his hands. Wells is being respected enough by the Timberwolves and other opponents that he is being given an opportunity to get these shot looks because they respect him as a ball handler. They respect him in terms of wanting to force the Grizzlies into other situations and giving Wells opportunity to be a productive player. So for all the calls of being very anti-Jalen Wells at times, you have to acknowledge the fact 4 stocks in this game, 4 steals in particular for Jalen Wells. That's impressive to log that many steals in any given contest, especially against a Timberwolves team who has a similar issue to the Memphis Grizzlies at the moment. The Memphis Grizzlies starting lineup against Minnesota was Wells, Cedric Howard, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr. The unique way to deal with the current state of affairs. But the Timberwolves started Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, and Bones Highland. Yes, that Bones Highland. So with Mike Conley out, no Anthony Edwards, the guard wing situation isn't much better for the T-Wolves. So both teams addressed it in an interesting way. The Grizzlies went big And Jalen Wells was big for Memphis in the contest. Again, not quite as good as Landale or Jackson Jr., but he deserves a tip of the cap as well. So a really big win. We'll talk about why it matters so much for the Grizzlies later on in the show. But hit me up on X at Joe Mullinax. Let me know in the comments. How are you feeling about this Grizzlies victory against the Timberwolves? A big win, really impressive showing. The all-star Jaren Jackson Jr., at least for now, is back. But Jock Landale deserves a major tip of the cap as well.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast.
There was some reporting over the last couple days on some Hawks stuff. So I've obviously gotten a lot of questions about Kristaps Porzingis in recent days. If you missed it on the show on Sunday evening into Monday, I talked about this extensively, but Porzingis is going to be sidelined for at least a couple of weeks as the Hawks kind of monitor him, and he gets probably some more testing done and some rest, etc., for his illness-related absence. I won't repeat all of what I've said. There is a lot of mystery with this compared to normal absence with injury or with even illness, because Porzingis has indicated, at least his one press conference indication was that it was not a recurrence of the POTS diagnosis that he had last summer, but at the same time, it has to be something that's not a normal illness. So I don't have all the answers. But we know right now he'll be out a couple of weeks, and this is important. I think the Hawks have to kind of assume that he won't be there. Now, he might still be there. They're hopeful, from what I've heard from people around the organization, that he can still help them this season. They're not ruling that out. But given just how uncertain this all is, it is hard to build your team and navigate the season. It's the rigors of the season. It's a very grueling schedule without knowing who's going to be there and how long he'll be out, day to day, all those things. So obviously, if he is good to go physically, he's going to play and will help them. He's already helped them this year. But there is a lot of difficulty on the team side. And obviously, they probably know more than we do on the outside about whether he can come back and likelihoods and all those things. But it does make things difficult from a team building standpoint, which we'll come back to in a second. There was some reporting from Mark Stein who said, and I quote, "Any significant trade business that Atlanta does in season is expected to include the expiring contract held by Porzingis," end quote. And look, every time I show something on Porzingis, I met with a lot of people telling me that the Hawks have to trade him urgently, and I get why. He makes a lot of money. He's not playing. There's some negativity about him. I totally understand all of that stuff right now on the fan side of things. I do have to laugh sometimes, though, because the same people will then tell you that he has huge trade value. Like, you can just trade him for this awesome stuff. It's like, well, which one is it? He's either bad and you don't like him, but also he suddenly has massive trade value. So it's a funny dichotomy on some level. There is some use to an expiring contract. Unfortunately, though, like, I know he is, again, I just said this, but he could help them this season. But if you're another team, his value on the court is like very mixed right now. Like, you're mostly his biggest value right now as a trade piece is the expiring contract. This summer, the thought was he could get healthier, and maybe he still will. But if you're an opposing team, like, you're not going to trade for Porzingis because of his on-court value right now. That's not going to happen. So that does lessen his appeal to some situations. And from what I've been hearing, and I've poked around this a lot actually in recent days, the Hawks would rather let Porzingis expire than trade him for a long-term deal that they don't actually like. Like, a good example of this summer, right? They trade, well, I guess last season, in season, they trade DeAndre Hunter in season. It wasn't that they hated DeAndre Hunter, is that they didn't really want that contract on their books long-term. And they were able to trade it without having to suffer pain in that trade. And people didn't like it. I like the deal more than people did. It looks great right now. It allowed them to do other things this summer, etc. But a lot of that was financial. And I know that's not the favorite part of discussing things on the NBA landscape, but in a salary cap driven league, it all matters. The money stuff matters a lot. If they can add someone on a deal that they actually like, then I'm confident that Ansi and company would be interested in that. But this is a process driven front office. They have to plan for the future. They have a lot of balls in the air, so to speak. And I see stuff about turning KP into some players that would certainly help the Hawks right now, but a lot of those guys have like big long-term money. For example, I won't go down this rabbit hole too much, but like turning Porzingis into like Sabonis right now. Sabonis is a good player. He would help the Hawks. I don't think the Hawks want that long-term commitment of money to Sabonis. That would be my guess. I might be wrong on that. We'll see. I got a question from @IceEffectFGC on Twitter, actually, about some like available bigs on the market if the Hawks wanted to get off of Kristaps' contract. And unfortunately, the only answer is it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. If they think, for instance, that N'Faly Dante can help them, then the need behind Okongwu is less. If they don't, and they don't love what they see from Mo Gay as a center, because I think Mo is still a power forward, as is Asa Newell, it could become a priority to at least find a backup center type if they don't believe KP is going to help them, or if they just want some more insurance. That was the whole idea of getting Dante in the first place, was to have some insurance behind KP. But it's probably more of a margins kind of transaction rather than a bigger deal. The Hawks do view Okongwu as a starting center, and I agree with that view. He's been good this season. For me, he's like a top 20 center in the league. He's a good player. He's not an elite player, but he's a good player. And that lessens the urgency quite a bit. But they do need depth behind Okongwu, and that's not a huge secret. By the way, quickly, other like newsy stuff. We'll come back to some roster building stuff in a second. But Mark Stein, in that same kind of vein as the KP reporting, has shared that the belief is that Jalen Johnson is as untouchable from the Hawks side as the Pelicans Bucks pick. I actually would add to that and say Jalen is more untouchable in my reporting. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but I think I'd probably put Jalen as the least likely thing to move on the whole roster, even ahead of the Pelicans pick. But then Jake Fisher, my good friend, wrote that today, actually, that the Hawks have zero intention, that's a direct quote, to making the Pelicans Bucks pick available. I've said this many times. I'll say it one more time. The only way I'd even think about it would be for Giannis, and I personally would lean to no, even in Giannis discussions. So there's that. Speaking of Jake and Giannis, Jake reported that Giannis is not asked out still, and there's some reporting around Milwaukee, actually, that they actually might try to buy to surround Giannis again. They keep doing that over and over again. It's worked a few times, to be fair to them. Also, on the Anthony Davis front, as I did a show last week on this topic, Jake reported that there's not seeming much of a market for AD right now. He did mention the Hawks as one of the teams, along with the Raptors, kind of in the mix that they want to be. But I've said this before, there's not really a clear path to AD. Like, I think the most logical move would be like a Trae for AD swap, but Dallas doesn't need Trae. They have Kyrie Irving coming back. And also, if I was trading for AD, I'd want to keep Trae because Trae makes AD better and AD makes Trae better. So I don't really see the logical way that happens. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's not impossible to make it happen, but maybe it would have to be probably with Porzingis. And if you're Dallas and you're not trying to necessarily pedal off, the appeal of KP would be to get off the money for AD, which they seem to not want to do at this point in time. So more on that later on if it comes to some heat. From the trade stuff to the newsy stuff, this actually got a lot of attention today, and it was, I get why, it's just one of those weird things. Trae Young was assigned to College Park on Tuesday afternoon, along with N'Faly Dante. Now, that's a good indicator for both guys. Obviously, you don't often see stars assigned to the G League, although LeBron was assigned to the G League this year for the same exact reason. It's procedural for Trae to practice, basically, on Tuesday. So that's, for me, a good indication of Trae coming back. The Hawks, if you missed it over the weekend, said that Trae was going to start practicing this week. I've gotten a flood of questions in the last couple hours after Trae did appear in College Park. Like, could he play Thursday? I wouldn't rule it out. I don't know anything about that right now, nor would the Hawks be, I would say, eager to tell me. I would guess he does not come back as early as Thursday right now, because you probably want to have him practice more than once. But we'll see. I think it will be relatively soon, given that he's returning to practice, and hopefully he heats up in a positive way from the injury. I got a question actually on Trae from Andrew, who says, do you think there's any way that they would trade Trae before the deadline? The short answer to that, and I could do this for the whole show, and I won't. I think that there is a small chance that they could trade him. Like, it's not 0%. I think it's very likely that they don't. And the real question with Trae is, and has always been, this summer, much more than in season. I've been consistent on that the entire time. I think that there's always been a tiny chance that he gets traded. Maybe that'll heat up in some other way. But I think that the pivot point is really the summer, much more than in season. That would be my short answer to that question. On the N'Faly Dante front, he's come back from concussion protocol. I think the Hawks are going to need N'Faly Dante, and I don't want to go crazy about that. But the prototypical example of this was Friday night in Detroit, where I think both Mo Gay and Asa Newell are power forwards first. They can both play some center. I think Mo in particular on defense can play some center. But I think that N'Faly Dante, while he's been out of the mix and out of sight, out of mind, and was a guy that Hawks fans didn't know a lot about, his first game did not go particularly well. I get all that. N'Faly Dante is a professional center. And he suffered a very bad concussion about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago now in College Park. It's good that he's coming back. I'm not trying to overweight that, but I think he could be of use to the Hawks in a non-KP world. One more thing on this before we move on. Jacob Toppin was waived on Monday. The Hawks, about a week ago, announced he's actually missed the rest of the season with a torn labrum. I shared on the pod that day. I thought he might get waived because they just might need the roster spot. The Hawks probably don't like to do that, but they probably think they just have to right now, because the point is, like, the Hawks have just been shorthanded for too long. The G League Showcase is later this week, where the whole league kind of descends on one area to see a lot of the guys in the G League. It's a very logical time for the Hawks to scout two ways. And again, two ways don't make huge impacts most of the time. I would keep your expectations low for the replacement for Jacob Toppin, but it's a guy that the Hawks maybe could add to help for the future and for help for depth purposes. Because look, they've had too many games this year where they've had only 10, 11 guys available. And a lot of that's injuries. Trae, Porzingis, Dante, even Nikola Jurčić, who really is more of a two-way guy. You know, he's not on a two-way, but he's kind of that level of player. Eli Njai has been hurt, banged up. But filling the two-way spot isn't going to be, I would say, a huge factor, but it does bring them potentially a body to help with depth, and that's a good idea. So I'm not sure if they're going to sign somebody soon. I got a question, actually, like, does waiving Toppin mean that they have somebody lined up? No, it doesn't mean that. They could, but because of the showcase being this week, that is like the time to evaluate guys who are available on two ways, because you can't just sign anybody to a two-way contract. You have to have a very few years of service in the league, etc. Like, you can't. Somebody asked me if they could sign Chris Paul to a two-way. I laughed about that. No, they cannot. It has to be a young guy, basically, at least a relatively young in service time player. So, long story short, there's a lot going on with the roster, a lot of buzz right now. Nothing imminent, but Trae coming back, positive indicator. Dante, to a lesser extent, positive indicator. And on the trade front, like, yes, things should be getting a little bit looser now as of December 15th, because a lot of league can be traded, but nothing is super buzzy and imminent at this moment in time.